Today, I'm going to convince you that history repeats, and that gold's purpose remains unchanged. Welcome back to our returning viewers, and if you're new, welcome to the channel. What is gold? When this question is asked of a broad group, you get many different answers forged through beliefs, facts, and superstitions. Is it an asset? Is it money? Gold has a historical utility that has not changed over millennia. It's still used today for the same purpose it was 100 years ago and for many years before that. Let's start way back at the beginning. The first known gold coins were struck in an area that's now part of modern-day Turkey around 550 BC, almost 700 years before the invention of paper. Imagine you want to form a society governed by the rule of law. You need currency. Before the invention of money, people existed on the barter system, which was confusing, inefficient, and untaxable. You can't have a government or society filled with specialists on a barter system because of the inherent roadblocks. So you create a common unit of exchange, and that's what money is. And gold is the oldest money. To understand why, you need only look to the periodic table of elements. There are very few elements that could possibly be used for money. You need something solid and that will last for generations, meaning it won't corrode. You also need something that has a low enough melting point and is soft enough for primitive societies to melt, form into a coin, and stamp, or mint, with simple hand tools. And finally, it has to be scarce enough that people cannot simply make their own and inflate the monetary supply, but easy enough to acquire that it could support commerce. Gold and silver are the natural elements to be the first unit of exchange. Gold and silver are money. We can debate that they are other things as well, and it could be true that it's also an asset and also a metal and also useful for so many things like space exploration or batteries, but there's a special utility that gold has as universal money. If you go into any country, you can exchange an ounce of gold for the currency of that nation, and the value of gold is stable. It's the value of the currencies that changes. 101 years ago, the Weimar Republic in Germany was dealing with a massive hyperinflation crisis in the post-World War I era. We talk about this in another video, Why We Buy Gold, the secret wealthy investors learn from history. During this time, German citizens suffered through a crisis where their currency was worth less than the paper it was printed on. Children played with stacks of German marks in the streets, and their parents would take wheelbarrows full of these marks to a baker to buy bread. Germans who had gold were able to survive with a great deal more comfort than those who lacked hard assets. Gold could be exchanged for goods and services, or it could be exchanged for another country's currency that still had value. It was the ultimate safety net, a unit of exchange that withstood inflation and currency destruction. How is this relevant today? 101 years later, we're seeing countries struggling with hyperinflation, and gold continues to provide a safe haven. This is happening today. In fact, it's happening right where it all started, in the country known for being the location where the first known gold coins were struck in 550 BC. We're talking about Turkey. Turkey's finance minister sounded an optimistic tone that conditions are improving as March's annualized inflation climbed to 68.5%. This only an improvement because analysts expected inflation to reach 69.1%. Small victories. Well, why should we care about Turkey? There are 195 recognized countries in the world today, and Turkey is a top 20 economy by GDP. This is not some backwater country lacking economic might, education, or culture. This is an impressive society with a rich history succumbing to hyperinflation, just as Germany did over 100 years ago, meaning this can conceivably happen anywhere. The Turkish lira used to be a strong currency. In 2007, 1 lira was 70 cents to the US dollar. Today, 1 lira is 3 cents to a dollar. Put another way, $1 now buys over 32 lira, where it used to buy about 1.25. The situation is only getting worse as interest rates in Turkey were raised to 45% to combat inflation. Inflation has done nothing but shrug it off and continued climbing. How does gold factor in? Well, we hinted at it earlier, and you can probably guess, but gold is the superstar of the story. Gold is a safety net. If you had gold in Germany during the years of hyperinflation in the early 1920s, you had an aegis, a shield. You could exchange gold, and a barter system was accepted, or you could exchange it for a currency that had value. And in Turkey today, gold has kept its shine. Demand for gold among the people is sky high. If the lira continues to devalue under inflation and the value of gold continues to increase, then it's one of the safest assets you can own as a Turkish citizen. No matter what happens to the lira, gold will be something that can be exchanged for a currency of value, just like in Germany. But of course, we have to tell the full story, and that's where smugglers come in. The Turkish government restricted gold imports to improve their current accounts, which factors in the value of imports and exports. By restricting the supply artificially, it did make their current accounts balance look better, which might be helpful if you're trying to get a loan or improve your currency's stability and value. But it also restricted the supply of a valuable commodity, and we know what happens to the prices of a commodity with an artificially restricted supply and surging demand. Gold sold in Turkey carries a premium about 7% higher than elsewhere in the world, and where a buck is to be made, you will find an entrepreneurial spirit gripping the hearts of people who find the risk tolerable. Smugglers are flocking to Turkey, and officials have proudly declared catching about $28 million worth of gold this year. Meanwhile, in 2021, a gang was found to have smuggled some $1.6 billion worth of gold into the country. Something tells me they're not catching everything. Demand is incredibly strong for gold, and this is likely to continue as long as Turkey suffers with a collapsing currency. The Turkish government is making the problem worse with import restrictions, which is artificially inflating gold prices in Turkey. So, 100 years ago, gold was the money that worked in Germany, and today, gold is the money that works in Turkey. And over 2,500 years ago, gold was the money that worked, when nothing else could. People may have short memories, but cultures do not. Memory lives on in culture through customs, rituals, and traditions passed on from generation to generation. Recipes, cooked the way mom did it, catching fish the way dad taught. Germans have been teaching generation after generation since the 1920s that gold is the safe way to preserve wealth. In America, it's common to see the older generation with a portfolio of mixed assets, and gold is allocated only a small portion, roughly 10%. But in Germany, it is almost 40%. Germans own almost 3 times as much gold as the German central bank. The historical memory of the German people is long, and the memory of how to protect against hard times is remembered well. How will the Turkish people remember this period in their collective memory? Will gold become a standard investment for the average Turk to guard against currency collapse as it has in Germany? And what lessons should America take from our neighbors across the pond? That's all we have for you today. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.